A few weeks ago, I got these Flicker Step boots, and I was really excited because I wanted to try to make a Shadow Clone build. Because on the surface of it, Shadow Clone seems like a really great ability. It says that it mimics your actions for 15 seconds, so it should do everything that I do, and it deals 80% of your damage. So that should be an 80% multiplier effectively, maybe a little bit less because of other little things, but should still be really close to that. And when I went out and actually tried it, I noticed that I couldn't really tell the difference between when I had it up and when I didn't have it up. So I recorded some footage and I was really surprised about what I saw. So let's see if we can notice it here. So let's actually test it out. So I summon my Shadow Clone here, and then let's say I attack with my Penetrating Shot, like so. And if we compare the damage that I'm doing versus it, we can notice a pretty big difference. All right, so let's slow down the footage here and take a look at it again a bit closer because it went really fast. And let's see what we notice about the damage that the Shadow Clone is doing here versus the damage that I'm doing. So I just hit for 782,000, it hit for 24,000. And then here my punctures are hitting around 70,000, it hit for about 2,000. I just hit for 700, it hit for 31,000. And my punctures hitting around 100,000, it's hitting for 2,000, 700,000, 40,000 for it. So it's doing way less than 80% damage, as we can see, and this seems really disappointing. So I reached out to Ava in the Rogue Discord, who does a lot of testing, and I asked him about it if he's noticed something similar, and he went way above and beyond and actually tried to figure out exactly what it's scaling off of, and I tested it a little bit, and I could tell that pretty much nothing was scaling on it, but he went crazy and actually tested everything individually. But here is a list that he came up with. Before we take a look at the list, there is one screenshot here that I took of me when I really tried to ramp up the pen shot damage a little bit more. And we can see that I did about 1.5 million damage here, and my Shadow Clone was doing about 10,000 damage, just to see the huge difference. But what is it that is working and what isn't working? Let's take a look here. So what doesn't work for Shadow Clone? Well, you can tell there's a lot that doesn't work. It's a long list, but let's take a look. So glyphs such as the chip passive and devious passive, which are damage multipliers, aspects such as blade dancer and trick shot do not work, meaning that you're not going to get it to do more AoE damage like you do. Passives, all of your scaling damage multipliers such as frigid finesse, weapon multiplier, close quarters combat, which is a huge one here, and then legendary nodes such as exploit weakness, and quite literally pretty much all damage scaling aspects such as expectant, edge masters in the game don't work for the clone, and neither does most of the passives and the glyphs. Uniques such as penitence don't carry over, condemnation, the 40% damage multiplier. In general, combo points do not work, which is obviously huge, and as a consequence, the Tibalt's bug doesn't work. And skills that swap weapons breaks the clone, causing it to use incorrect weapon damage for the next ability used. And this was actually something we could take a look at here, which is kind of crazy. The stats such as damage versus frozen, that doesn't seem to work, but that could just be a dummy bug. And then what does work? Well, not a whole lot. So glyphs such as the control passive and versatility work, passive such as malice work, legendary, nodes, cheap shot, and no witness, and stats such as vulnerable, damage versus poison, damage versus crowd control, and damage with ultimate. This note here, the skills that swap weapons breaks the clone, causing it to use incorrect weapon damage for the next ability used. Let's take a look at how that works. Okay, so this is really crazy. So what I'm going to do is I have two daggers here that have 11 power here, so they basically do no damage. And the way that this works and what happens is that for some reason, when you use an attack such as Pen Shot, it's going to scale the Shadow Clone damage off of the previously used skill's weapon. Meaning that if I'm using Puncture to build up my combo points, Then when I use penetrating shot, instead of using my bow damage for the shadow clone, it's going to use my dagger damage. So you'll see some really small numbers. So let's check it out. So I hit shadow clone, I hit puncture, and then I use penetrating shot. So did you see how much damage that did? Let's do it one more time, and then penetrating shot. Okay, so if you missed it, let's take a look here. So I hit my shadow clone, I hit puncture, and then I hit penetrating shot. And here you can see a really small number here, 291, and that was a crit on the shadow clone. Let's see it again here. Here we go. Hit 3 punctures here, and then I hit again. I did 214,000, and the clone did 192. So it's doing basically 0 damage now because it's scaling off of the daggers.